1 week from tomorrow, Texas will be taking on Ohio State in a CFP rematch at the Shoe. How do the Longhorns get revenge? We'll try to lay out the blueprint on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you for making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and remember to leave a comment. That's one of the fastest ways to help us grow right here on Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. We will break down the SEC's decision to move to 9 conference games, and we'll also talk about which Longhorns could join the 1K club a little bit later in today's show. But first, college football returns tomorrow with week 0. And then 1 week from tomorrow, your number 1 Texas Longhorns will begin their quest for a national championship with a game on the road at number 3, Ohio State. It's the biggest non-conference game in the sport this year, one of the biggest games overall. And of course, everyone knows that these two teams met in January. Unfortunately, we all remember what happened, but that was last season. This year is new. New personnel, new coaches, new venue. The logos and the uniforms remain the same, but not much else will be. And Texas is obviously hoping the results will be different too. Next week, we're going to really deep dive into this matchup. But today, look, this is such an important game. It deserves more than just 1 week's worth of shows. We're going to lay out a very broad blueprint of what the Longhorns need to do to leave Columbus with a victory next Saturday. 1 key on offense, 1 key on defense. Again, keeping things very broad today. For the Longhorn offense against Matt Patricia's defense, look, I'm not a huge Matt Patricia guy, as in I don't think he's that good, and the pencil in the ear thing really annoys me. But I think Ohio State having a new defensive coordinator actually benefits them here. It's been a long time since Matt Patricia has been a defensive coordinator anywhere. His last DC gig was in New England back in 2017. His last college gig of any kind was way back in 2003. So there's not a lot of college tape on Matt Patricia. And again, he's not totally been out of the league because he's had jobs, but mainly they've been analyst jobs where he doesn't have a whole lot of say in what actually happens with the defense that he's a part of. So normally, common thought says, a new coordinator, that's scary for the team with the new coordinator, right? Like, do his guys know the defense just yet? Well, in this case, look, Steve Sarkisian has proven that when he's given an offseason to prepare for a defensive coordinator that he knows a lot about or a defensive coordinator that has some obvious tendencies, Sark's going to win. You go back to the 2023 non-conference game against Nick Saban in Alabama, kind of that coming out party for Texas, the game that sent a message that, this Texas era is different than the one that we just had. Now, Nick Saban does what he does. He believes in his system, and why not with the success that he had, right? But obviously, Sark knew all about Nick Saban and what he does defensively from their shared time at Alabama. Sark had plenty of time to prepare a game plan, and that game plan worked. You look at the big non-con win for Texas last year, 2024, at Michigan. Wink Martindale, the defensive coordinator. I know it was his first year at Michigan, but he's been doing the same thing for years and years and years in the NFL. It's why he lost his job with the Ravens. He became predictable. Well, Sark predicted what Wink Martindale was going to do. He had time to come up with a game plan, and he absolutely crushed him. So Sark kind of knew what those defenses were going to look like. Obviously, it worked out for Texas. Matt Patricia was a part of New England staff for a number of years, and Bill Belichick became famous, and he became the GOAT for changing up his defense every week based on the opponent that he was playing. I mean, in the Super Bowl against the Rams, they ran out a defense that they had never run. They had never shown it, and it worked. They held the Rams to 3 points. They made Jared Goff look like a pumpkin back there. Everybody thought Jared Goff sucked after that game. Turned out, no, Jared Goff's actually pretty solid. It's just Bill Belichick is that good at what he does. So I assume Matt Patricia is going to try to follow that strategy and come up with a game plan to try to take Texas out of its rhythm. And if you ask me to predict what Ohio State does, it'd be hard to say exactly what it is, right? It's like you're going into a test and you don't really know what the material is. But if you asked me to try to guess, I would think that Ohio State is going to try to take away the big play. Arch Manning loves the deep shot. Steve Sarkisian loves the deep shot. And when the Longhorn offense is rolling, the deep ball is a big part of it. I think Matt Patricia and Ohio State is going to make Arch and the entire Texas offense kind of nickel and dime their way down the field. So the question is, can Texas put together 8, 10, 12 play drives without those back-breaking penalties, without sacks, obviously without turnovers that just absolutely kill you? Texas is going to have to be patient in this game. Sark as the play caller, Arch Manning as the quarterback, everybody on the offensive side of the ball. I think Ohio State's going to have lighter boxes on early downs. I think they're going to dare Texas to run. I think they're going to try to get pressure through overloads and line games and unexpected rushers. I don't think there's going to be engage 8 style blitzes on every play. Of course, they're going to try to confuse Arch. They're going to try to confuse this new look Texas offensive line a lot. But I think the big key for Texas is patience. If you can run the ball against lighter boxes, that's going to force Ohio State to drop another defender or two to slow the run. And when that happens, boom, there's your one-on-ones on the outside. There's your downfield shots. If you can't run against lighter boxes, could be a long day for the Texas offense. Like a lot of teams go into games thinking, we must stop the run or else. I don't think that's the Patriot way, and I don't think that is what Matt Patricia is going to do. I don't think Ohio State's going to prioritize that. 60-yard bombs, that's how Sark wants to score points, if you'll let him. I think you're going to see a game plan that says, can Texas run the ball? Can Texas run it in the red zone? Can Texas convert on 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 by handing the ball off? If the answer to those questions is yes, the Horns are running next week in Columbus. If the answer to those questions is no, maybe not. But to me, those are two huge keys. I know I said one. I feel like I just kind of gave you two. Be patient. Under that, take what the defense gives you. Don't take unnecessary risks. Arch can't be impatient and say, God, I'm so tired of these short gains. I need to throw this ball down the field in a double coverage and just hope. No, take what the defense gives you and be able to run the football because, again, that's going to open things up for your downfield passing attack. So that's an early key for the Longhorn offense. What about the Texas defense going up against Julian Sayin and the Ohio State offense? I think, contrarily, Texas needs to stop the run. Sounds obvious, right? Something every team tries to do in every game. But Ryan Day, he has this tendency to try to bully teams, and it feels like he's on a mission to prove that his team is more physical than yours. It's almost like he's still trying to prove that Lou Holtz was wrong when he made those comments about the Buckeyes being soft a couple of years ago. So Ryan Day will lean heavy on the run, and he'll take selective shots downfield in the passing game. He's done that a lot in non-conference games. He's also done that way too much against Michigan in the last 4 years, which is a big reason why Ohio State's lost 4 in a row against the Wolverines. Like last year, they had Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka and Carnell Tate and Brandon Innes, all these weapons on the outside, and they were trying to play that game in a phone booth. Again, felt like they were trying to prove that they were the more physical team. It didn't work, and it didn't make sense. I was watching that game wondering what the hell they were doing. I think every Buckeye fan felt the exact same way. So part of the game plan isn't hope, but you kind of hope Ryan Day and Brian Hartline do something like that here. Like if they take their wide receiver room, which is the best in college football, out of the game themselves, that'd be great, wouldn't it? And look, with the first-time starter at quarterback, it's very reasonable to think that the Buckeyes could try to lean on their run game to take some pressure off of Julian Sayin. So maybe Texas will get lucky in that regard. And the Buckeyes have a really good offensive line. Texas, of course, has a new-look defensive line, at least interior of the defensive line. They're going to test that matchup, and this will be a big test for the Texas linebackers, too, as part of the run defense. Like, I would argue the semifinal was Anthony Hill's worst game of 2024, maybe his worst game of his Texas career. I don't think Leon Galafau was very good in that game either. Honestly, David Benda was the best linebacker Texas had in that game. He's gone. Hill needs to show why he's a preseason All-American and a future top 10 draft pick. LaFau, Trey Moore, those guys need to bring it too. And even though Ohio State lost its top 2 runners from last year, they've got two really good running backs to replace them. They are going to test Texas. And again, that's just what Ryan Day seemingly does in games like this. So stop the run, make the young, inexperienced quarterback beat you through the air. You make Ohio State one-dimensional. You've got a good shot to keep that Buckeye offense in check. So there you go. Would love to hear from y'all. Comment below your keys to victory. Again, these are very vague. We're going to deep dive into some of the more matchups and just way more in depth next week as we get closer and closer to kickoff. But just a couple of early thoughts on some things that I think Texas needs to do to reverse their fortunes in this matchup against OSU. All right. Coming up next, the SEC has officially announced that it's moving to a 9-game conference schedule starting in 2026. How does this impact the future of Texas football? I'll tell you, coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. Oh, but first, a word for our friends at FanDuel. August 26th, that's 4 days from now, it's officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you all sorts of deals on NFL season predictions. So if you want to call your shot for MVP, if you think there's a long shot division winner, or if you are all ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before the opening game of the NFL season, this is your moment to put your money where your mouth is. You think Patrick Mahomes is going to win MVP? Maybe you're a Texans fan. You think CJ Stroud is going to win MVP? Could Dak Prescott do it in Dallas? Well, if you're crazy, you can bet on that with FanDuel. You can pick your team to win the Super Bowl. I'm telling you, so many ways to win. August 26th, again, FanDuel Futures Day. It's 1 day and 1 day only. So head over to the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now. It's FanDuel. Play your game. All right, back here on Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Happy Friday to everyone out there. Appreciate y'all tuning in. Hope everyone has a great weekend and hope everyone enjoys the week 0 that we've got coming up tomorrow. Yesterday, the Southeastern Conference dropped a bomb on the college football world by announcing that they will be moving to a 9-game conference schedule beginning next season. That announcement also included a few additional details. Number 1, each school will play 3 annual opponents every year. Number 2, the other 6 games will be a rotation of opponents. The league also said that each team will face every SEC opponent at least once every 2 years, and they'll get to play them at home once every 4 years. So a legitimate rotation of the other 6 teams outside of the 3 regulars that you'll see every season. Also, on top of all of that, each team is going to be required to schedule at least one high quality, it's the verbiage the SEC used, non-conference game every season, meaning Power 4 or Notre Dame. Sorry about that, Ole Miss and Mizzou. You're going to have to play some real teams out of conference now. Sorry about that, Alabama and Auburn. You're probably not going to get to play Mercer or Eastern Illinois or Directional State in the second to last game of the season anymore. So big changes here for everybody in the SEC. And look, Texas is not going to be too affected by that non-conference nugget. A lot of teams around the league will be impacted heavily. Big changes here, and this is a big flex by the SEC. Look, we could spend a lot of time talking about why this is happening, but I'd rather spend the bulk of this segment talking about how this impacts Texas. So real quick, this is happening for 2 reasons, money and power. Okay, now how does this affect the Longhorns? Well, we'll start with this. I think that there's a chance that the 2026 Texas football schedule will be the toughest schedule in college football history. Might sound bold, but just think about it. 9 SEC games. And let's be real. Texas has been dealt a pretty solid hand in their first 2 years in the league, getting to play Kentucky twice, Mississippi State twice, Vanderbilt twice, Arkansas. They've gotten fortunate by getting some of the weaker teams in this league last year and this year. Odds are they probably won't be that fortunate next year. They haven't played Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, Tennessee, South Carolina. There's a good chance 4 or maybe even all 5 of those teams will be on the slate next year. Look, any SEC schedule is tough, but I think odds are Texas will have a tougher slate than they've had the last 2 years, and they'll probably have one of the tougher schedules than any team in the conference. Oh, yeah. Don't forget that Ohio State will make the return trip to Austin in week 2 next year. So it's 9 SEC games and Ohio State. Not all non-conference games are created equal. Ohio State is one of the premier programs in the country. We know that. 9 SEC games plus Ohio State. Yeah, buckle up. Look, the good news is if you're a Texas fan who likes going to the games, just likes watching good games on TV, you're going to get a lot of that. You're going to get some tantalizing home matchups. Like this year's home schedule is not good at all. So you're going to get much more bang for your buck if you're a season ticket holder than you are right now. But on the other hand, this is going to make for an incredibly difficult schedule. And then, of course, Michigan makes the return trip to Austin in 2027. So the schedule won't be too dissimilar that season. Notre Dame's coming up at the end of the decade. The Longhorns never shy away from marquee non-conference matchups. They're going to keep doing that, and they're going to have more big-time conference matchups. Good for the money, good for the power. Again, Texas has a pretty tough schedule this year, all things considered, with only 8 SEC games next year. Get ready. I do wonder how this will impact the SEC's chances of getting at-large bids in the playoff moving forward. Obviously, Texas is a part of that. Like, we all know that the SEC is going to have a seat at the head of the table in all CFP discussions. And now the biggest argument against the SEC regarding the college football playoff is gone. Right? That was what the Big Ten and the Big 12 are holding against the SEC is, you think you play a tough schedule. You only have 8 conference games and you don't have anybody tough in the non-con. Well, all of a sudden, that argument is out the window. So Greg Sankey's seat at that table just got bigger. And I don't think Greg Sankey makes this move without assurances, plural, that more SEC teams will be getting automatic bids for the college football playoff. Even though 3 of the Power 4 will now have 9-game conference schedules, we'll see if the ACC follows suit. They're not all created equal. So right now, not knowing the future, it's a little bit scary. Like, what happens if next year Texas goes 9-3 and there's like 10-2 SMU in the ACC and they don't play anybody? Like we saw what happened to Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss last year. Is Texas going to be left out because they have a worse record? Or is the committee, who says this year they're going to pay more attention to strength of schedule, are they actually going to be true to their word? I don't like leaving this kind of stuff up to a committee, but we'll see. Obviously, you hope Texas, they take all of the decision out of the committee's hands and just win 10 games, 11 games, 12 games, whatever. But that's the thing that not just Texas fans, but fan bases around the SEC are asking. Are we going to get assurances that, hey, this tougher schedule is actually going to lead us to a better chance to make it to the college football playoff? Again, I don't think Greg Sankey does this without a very strong hunch that is going to happen. So what about the 3 annual opponents every year thing? For some teams around the conference, it may be tough to find 3 common opponents. For Texas, this feels pretty easy, right? Man, I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts if you would rather the Longhorns go in a different direction. I guess it's probably the conference that will make this call. But for me, it's Oklahoma, it's A&M, and it's Arkansas. You're not getting rid of the Oklahoma game, obviously. One of the best parts of Texas going to the SEC is the return of the Lone Star Showdown at the end of the year. You're not messing with that, obviously. And then Arkansas, look, the first 2 are obvious. Arkansas probably should be an obvious number 3. Reigniting of the old Southwest Conference rivalry. It's a game that means a lot of people on both sides. So I think that's going to be the decision the league makes. I think Arkansas probably wants it that way too. Maybe the league goes in a different direction there. Could they go LSU, right? Neighbors to the east. Texas and LSU recruit against each other all the time. It'd be a quick trip for both fan bases to make. 2 marquee programs, 2 blue bloods, getting them on the field every single year. That'd be good for the almighty dollar. Could it be Georgia? It feels like the SEC is trying to create a Texas-Georgia rivalry. I find this interesting. Texas plays 3 teams twice in men's college basketball this year. Everybody else in the SEC, they play once. There are 3 teams that they will face twice this coming season. OU, A&M, Georgia. Of course, Texas and Georgia have played the first 2 years in football in this league. They met in the conference title game last year. I wonder, I don't think it's going to happen, but I do wonder if there's a chance that the SEC goes in a different direction for that 3rd game. I doubt it. I think most of y'all probably want Arkansas. That's the game I want. Of course, bring back the rivalry. Honestly, it's an easier game than Georgia and LSU, so that won't hurt either. I'll take it. But there you go. The SEC going to 9 games, a little bit on how it impacts Texas. Would love to hear from y'all on who you want the common opponents to be starting in 2026. All right, one segment to go on a Friday edition of Locked On Longhorns, the 1K Club. How many Longhorns will go for 1,000 yards this season? Running backs, receivers, tight ends, all of it. We'll try to answer that question coming up next right here on Locked On Longhorns. Oh, but first, a word for our friends at Rougiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them in the past. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiet Ready. This is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and increase blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under the tongue and starts working right away, on average in just 15 minutes, and effects can last up to 36 hours. So you can stay confident and you can stay in control when you're in the bedroom. If traditional options have not worked, Rougiet might be your answer. More than 150,000 men have already made the switch. Everything is done completely online, and packages are shipped discreetly to your door. Don't just take my word for it. There are tons of customer reviews online that you can check out as well. So head over to Rougiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use that promo code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use that promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. All right, back here on Locked On Longhorns, final segment on a Friday show, the infamous 1K Club. It's a big deal to get in, but it's not easy. 1,000 yards. 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving. Either way, earns you a spot to the place that every skill position player wants to be. Last year, Texas only had one member of the 1K Club. That was Trey Wisner. No other running backs, no other wide receivers, no tight ends. Nobody else made the cut. Matthew Golden got close. He was just 13 yards away from getting the invite. He didn't get there. Gunnar Helms set some school records at tight end. He didn't get there. Jaden Blue, Isaiah Bont, you name it. It's an exclusive club. It was really exclusive for the 2024 Texas Longhorns. Let's turn the page to 2025. Can Texas get 2, maybe even 3, maybe even 4 new members? Let's start with the most likely candidate, the aforementioned Quintravion Wisner. Yeah, you can make it twice. And if you do, you get remembered. Having one great year is great. Having multiple great years, well, that makes you special, and that makes you remembered. Steve Sarkisian has had at least one 1,000-yard rusher in every year that he's been a head coach. And a matter of fact, in the last 13 years for Sark, either as a head coach or an offensive coordinator, he's had at least one tailback break the 1,000-yard mark. So the odds are it's going to happen again in 2025. Trey Wisner is this team's number 1 running back going into the year. He seems like the guy most likely to do it. Now, Trey Wisner wasn't the starter last year, at least going into last year. That was Jaden Blue, so maybe it'll be somebody else. I don't say that to try to put a hex on Trey Wisner. I'm just saying it could be somebody else. So who else could it be? Well, what would be best? I would love for us to be talking about Trey Wisner and CJ Baxter, or Trey Wisner and Christian Clark, right? I don't want to be talking Trey Wisner or CJ Baxter or Christian Clark or Jarrett Gibson. I'd love to be talking about multiple 1,000-yard rushers in this Texas backfield because, well, it goes without saying. That would mean Texas has one of the best running games in America. Here's the thing, though. Coach Sark has never had 2 1,000-yard rushers in the same season, so it's a tall task, and betting on it feels risky. But I do think CJ Baxter is good enough to get there if he's fully healthy, and it sounds like he's very close to being just that. He's been one of the most impressive players in fall camp, and we already know that Trey Wisner is good enough to do it. So let's see. That's 2 potential members right there. Feels like that's it. I don't think more than 2 running backs really have a chance. I just don't think the other guys are going to get enough carries to have a shot to eclipse 1,000 yards. But yeah, 2 guys right there with Wisner and Baxter. Maybe they can get in. What about at wide receiver? Interestingly enough, Texas has only had 1 season where they've had 2 1,000-yard rushers in the same year, ever. That was 2008, Jordan Shipley and Quan Cosby. Quan actually led the team with 1,123 receiving yards. Shipley not far behind at 1,060. But that's it. There's never been a year where Texas has had 3 1,000-yard receivers, only 1 year where they've had 2. Steve Sarkisian has also never had a season with 2 1,000-yard receivers. Can that happen this year? Or can Texas get at least one this year? I think your 3 obvious candidates, Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore, Parker Livingston. I would throw Emmett Mosley in there, but he's been banged up, dealing with a lower leg injury. I don't know if he'll be 100% at the start of the year. I don't know if that's something that's going to linger into the regular season, so we'll leave him out for right now. Ryan Wingo, the most talented guy in that room. We talked about him a lot yesterday. He's big, he's fast, he's strong. He can get you a ton of yards after the catch. He averaged 16 yards a catch last season. He can win at all 3 levels. He's got the most number 1 potential on this team, which means he's got the most 1,000-yard potential on this team. DeAndre Moore, he said he wants to go for 1,200 this year. He said he wants to win the Biletnikoff this year. I love it. Love the confidence. Hope he's right. He had more catches than any Texas wide receiver coming back from last year's team. He also had 4 catches for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns in the Mississippi State game that Arch Manning started, one of his 2 starts last year. So there was some chemistry that we saw, small sample size, but the one SEC game that those guys play together, pretty good for Demo. And then I mentioned Parker Livingston. He's the wild card here. He is Arch Manning's roommate. Maybe some chemistry there. He does play the position, though, that's furthest away from Arch on the outside. So maybe it's a little boom or bust there, but Livingston's got some wheels, man. He could be a deep ball threat. And you're talking about trying to get a bunch of yards, over 1,000. Those deep shots don't hurt. So those are your 3 receiving candidates. Tight end, look, Jack Andrews is the number 1. I'm a big believer in him. We're not talking about Brock Bowers here. And I'm not even sure we're talking about Gunnar Helm. And again, Helm set a school record last year. He only had 786 receiving yards. I say only because, again, we're talking about breaking 1,000. So it's tough to predict that Texas is going to have multiple members of the 1,000-yard club, or the 1K club, as I like to call it. Sark likes to spread the ball around a lot. Texas has a lot of weapons. The running backs also get involved in the passing game. So they're going to take away some receptions and receiving yards from the pass catchers on the outside. And look, we don't know enough about Arch and what he likes to do just yet. He's only thrown 90 passes in his college career. So we don't know if he's a lock on to one target kind of guy or if he's a spread the wealth kind of guy. All 4 of those reasons make it tough to predict. I'm going to go with 2 members of the 1K club this year. I'm going to go with Trey Wisner, who I think will lead Texas in rushing. I'm going to go with Ryan Wingo, who I think has a breakout year, and he'll lead the Longhorns in receiving. CJ Baxter, Demo, Livingston, I think they'll all be close, but I'll go with Wisner and Wingo, the 2 W's, as your 2 newest members of the 1K club. What say you? Comment below with your thoughts. But that's going to do it for today's episode. If you made it this far, number 1, thank you. Number 2, please remember to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, all of those great things. Really do appreciate y'all making Locked On Longhorns a part of your day. For your next listen, be sure to check out Locked On Bets with my man Lee Sterling and Kevin Rogers. They've got your week 0 picks, so you can make some money with our friends at FanDuel this weekend. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Next week will be game week. So much Texas-Ohio State conversation. We will definitely check in with the folks in Columbus as well. Oh, yeah. College football, it's here, baby. Congrats. We made it through the offseason. It is back tomorrow. And, of course, the Longhorns are back in just 1 week. Hope everyone enjoys the football. Hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, horns up, mic's off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.